Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicidad Oliveras, and I will discuss about the history of Italian literature and also the authors and writers at that time. The history of Italian literature properly begins toward the end of the Middle Ages. It was then that writers began to abandon Latin as the language of literature and write in one of the Italian dialects used in common speech. The Italian literature represents the rich culture of the country and depicts the future heroic legends that lived in the country for ages. The literary language of Italy was Latin. Before the 13th century, the chronicles, the historical poems, and the religious poems written in that era were all in Latin. So next, the popes and Franks in 753 to 772. In 753, the Pope Stephen II makes an unusual journey north of the Alps. He visits the Frankish king, Pepin III, to seek this help against the Lombards, who have recently taken the city of Ravenna and who now pose a similar threat to Rome. So the people announced Pepin at the Abbey of Saint Denis near Paris, together with his two young sons, Charles and Karl Luman. Pepin Joel invades northern Italy in 754 and again in 756. He is able to drive the Lombards from the territory belonging to Ravenna, but he does not restore it to its rightful owner, the Byzantine Emperor. Instead, the believing the fiction revealed in the forged donation of Constantine. He hands over large areas of central Italy to the Pope and its successors. So the land given to Pope Stephen in 756 in the so-called donation of Pepin gives the papacy the added rule of the temporal power. These lands increase and reduce at various periods of history are the Papal States over which the popes continued to rule until their incorporation in the new Kingdom of Italy in 1870. So in the short term, the temporal rule of the popes is shaky. Within a few years, the Lombards again invade their territory. In 772, a new pope appeals for help to a new Frankish king. So Adrian I enlists the support of Charles Magny. This time, the Lombard threat is conclusively resolved, but northern Italy, now within the Frankish Empire, is reduced to an appendix of France and Germany. So next, we have fragmented Italy from the 7th century. So Italy, which Sicily as its two, looks the most natural of political units, protected from mainland Europe by the Alps and on all other sides by the sea. This surely must be a single kingdom, or as the Romans made it, the center of an empire. So the entire eastern coast is vulnerable to attack from the Balkans. Sicily is a short haul from Africa, Corsica and Sardinia provide useful sleeping zones for enemies based in the southern France or the Spain. So the geographical position has precisely the opposite effect to either side of the Alps. There is no space through which armies from Western or Eastern Europe can force their way into the rich green territory of the Hook Valley. And the fertile coast of Italy and Sicily are also close to other stretches of land that a short sea cruising seems more of an invitation than a deterrent to neighboring rivals. So all these links can also work to the advantage of the inhabitants of Italy, as the Genoa and Venice triumphantly prove, but they mean that Italy does not have the inward strength of an island. So it has instead the outgoing opportunities, and with them the vulnerability of a rich peninsula, crowded in upon by interested rivals. So after the collapse of the Roman Empire, Italy is constantly nibbled at by its neighbors, making the map an ever-shifting While there is only one fairly stable element, the papacy in Rome. So next, neighboring neighbors in 9th to 13th century. So in the 9th century, the Byzantine emperor still holds various territories down the east coast, the Exarchate of Ravenna, together with the Sicily. So the Pope in Rome rules over the Papal States. Northern Italy is now officially part of the Empire of the Franks, invited into the peninsula by Rome to surprise the Lombards. So over the coming countries, much of Italy is often in the hands of small local princes, but there are also frequent intruders rather. So in the early 10th century, Hungarians regularly raided into the northern Italy. Arabs from North Africa have by the time captured Sicily from the Byzantines, together with maritime towns on the Italian mainland. In 846, they besieged and partly sacked Rome. So the anarchy which prevails for much of the period in the north of Italy has a profound effect on the region. So it causes the more important towns now growing in prosperity. So to enclose themselves in strong walls and to adopt an increasingly independent stance. The government of these towns is taken into the hands of the leading citizens, resulting in the extremely effective Italian oligarchies, usually referred to as communes, such as Venice, Milan, Genoa, acquire municipal councils in which the elected councillors call themselves between the deliberate. So next, we have the communes in Italy, 11th to 13th century. So the period from the 11th to 13th century sees a steady rise in the prosperity in the cities of Europe. One of the first regions to prosper in northern Italy on the trade route between the eastern Mediterranean and northern Europe, with goods landing at Venice for the journey through the passes of the Alps, north to Australia and Germany, or west through Milan to France. So between about 10 to 80 and 1140, many of the towns of northern Italy, among them Pisa, Signa, Florence, Bologna, Milan, and Genoa, so acquire municipal councils in which the elected councillors call themselves also consuls. So in a deliberate echo of Italy's Republican past. So as these Republican communes grow in wealth and assert control over the large tracts of the surrounding countrysides, they become, in effect, independent. Technically, they acknowledge either pope or emperor as feudal overlord and able to restrain these fledgling city-states. Popes and emperors often authorize their new form of government and also thus give it legitimacy. So in the early years of these Italian communes, every male citizen can participate in an assembly known as the Aringo. But this glimmer of democracy is soon extinguished in favor of oligarchy. So consideration of efficiency can coincide with the interest of the nobility and the rich merchants of the city, and also the electoral power in the communes, which is the becomes increasingly restricted to members of few families. So next we have Venice, Genoa, and Pisa. So in 9th to 14th century. So the first of Italy's medieval cities to prosper are those which grow rich through the maritime trade, Venice in the east, Genoa and Pisa in the west. Genoa and Pisa in the west, of Venice with the Byzantine Empire as its neighbor. On the other side of the Adriatic upholds its own interest from as early as the 9th century through skillful democracy. So Genoa and Pisa, by contrast, are strengthened through conflict. In about 934, Genoa is sacked by a Fatimid fleet from North Africa. So Muslim raids on this kind are a regular hazard in Corsica and Sardinia. the two large islands confronting the west coast of Italy. So next we have Republican Florence in 12th to 16th century. When Florence begins its territorial expansion in the 12th century, the town, like many others in northern Italy, is governed as a commune. The Florentines resist princely grew longer than any other commune apart from Venice, not finally succumbing until the Medici are accepted as Dukes of Tuscany in the 16th century. So during the 4 centuries of the Republic, Florence is in the permanent turmoil as rival classes jockeyed for power. So the city's astonishing achievement, not untypical in Italian history, is that amid the murder and the mayhem, Florence grows prosperous and produces outstanding masterpieces of literature and art. So indeed, this troubled city becomes the powerhouse of the Renaissance. So next, the geography of Italy. The geography of Italy is a Mediterranean country located in southern Europe. It is bordered by the Adriatic Sea on the east coast, the Tyrrhenian Sea on the west or Mediterranean coast, and the Ionian Sea to the south. In the north, Italy is bordered by the countries of France, Switzerland, Australia, and Slovenia. So Italy is known for its Mediterranean climate, which is found mainly in the coast. Inland, it is the generally cooler and winter, but usually hotter during the summer. So southern Italy has a hot and mostly dry climate, while the north has more of an alpine climate, getting lost of the snowing winter. So next, religion in Italy. The major religion in Italy is Roman Catholicism. This is not surprising as Vatican City, located in the heart of Rome, is the hub of Roman Catholicism and where the Pope resides. Roman Catholics and other Christians make up 80% of the population, though only one-third of those are practicing Catholics. So although Italy is very diverse from a cultural standpoint, the country is fairly homogeneous both of linguistically. The majority of population speaks Italian and also the religious as Roman Catholicism is the religious faith also of the choice for nearly 90% of the Italian population. So the Italian constitution provides for freedom of religion and the government is taught to respect the right in the practice, not tolerating its abuse. So either by government or private action rather, there is no state religion of Italy. So although the constitution prohibits state support to private schools, the Catholic Church does enjoy some privileges stemming from its sovereign status and its historical authority, which is not applicable on the other faiths. So Roman Catholicism has played an enormous role in Italy's history and continues to dominate as the most prominent faith in the country of today. So in the following section, we will take a closer look at Catholicism as it relates to Italy. So this section is divided into 3 parts. First, we have from the early beginnings to Christianity through the 15th century, from the 16th century to roughly end of the 18th century, and also the third from the 19th century to the present. Next, the authors and writers. First is Niccolo Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli was born on May 3, 1469 in Florence, Italy to Bernardo di Niccolo Machiavelli, a lawyer, and his wife Bartolomea di Stefano Nelli, who was the oldest son of his parents with 2 elder sisters, and a younger brother. Machiavelli was born during the period of French invasion when Italy was divided into 4 rival cities. States and was ruled by the other stronger governments all over the rest of Europe. So Niccolò Machiavelli, who was an Italian Renaissance philosopher, diplomat, and author Niccolò Machiavelli is remembered for his work, which is The Prince. He believed that the end or the intention behind any action justifies the action. So he gave rise to the term of Machiavellianism, which signifies the use of the deceit and treachery to achieve one goal. Next, Dante Alighieri. Dante Alighieri was an Italian writer, poet, and philosopher. His work, his Divine Comedy, is widely regarded as the greatest literary work ever produced in the Italian language, and the most prominent poem of the Middle Ages. Often referred to as the father of the Italian language, Dante Alighieri played a crucial role in establishing the Italian literature. However, he was also an able statesman, and on the conspiracy of his political opponents, he had to spend the last part of his life in exile, planning fruitlessly to return home, but died in Ravenna at the age of 56. So next is Michelangelo. Michelangelo was an Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet. Michelangelo was a prominent figure of the High Renaissance. He is credited to have influenced the Western art in unprecedented ways. He is widely regarded as the greatest artist of his age and one of the greatest artists of all time. He was equally revered and respected of an architect. So next, Luigi Pirandello. Luigi Pirandello was an Italian novelist, short story writer, poet, and dramatist. Best remembered for his plays, Pirandello was honored with the prestigious Nobel Prize in Literature in 1934. An Italian nationalist, Pirandello supported fascism. He asked the fascist government to melt down his Nobel Prize medal for the Abyssinia campaign. He eventually embarked on a writing career with the support of his friends and began to publishing his works by the 1890s. However, an unexpected family crisis shattered his personal and professional life, and he was forced to focus his career already. He established writer of short stories at this time. He went on to focus more on playwriting and emerged as one of the most innovative dramatists of the early 20th century. So next, Umberto Eco. Umberto Eco, he was an Italian novelist. He is best remembered for his novels, which is The Name of the Rose and Focus Pendulum. He also taught at the University of Bologna and had released quite a few children's books and translations. He was also known for his work on semiotics and medieval studies. He has always worked with a clear balance between history, reality, and fantasy in all of his fictional work. So next, Giacomo Casanova. Giacomo Casanova was an Italian adventurer. He is best remembered for his memoir, which is Histoire di Mabi, which serves as a mirror of 18th century European lifestyle. His countless affairs made him synonymous with the word of womanizer. They also befriended the European reality and the church authorities, and was quite fond of gambling. So although he himself did not have any social standing at each place, he managed to associate with monarchs, aristocrats, and cardinals. He would also have been a physician if he were allowed to pursue medicine. His memoir History may be written at the end of his life, so provides one of the most authentic documentation of European society of that era. The next is Giovanni Boccaccio. Giovanni Boccaccio was an Italian poet, writer, and correspondent of Petrarch, an important Renaissance humanist. So Boccaccio was also one of the most prominent personalities of 14th century European literature. A versatile writer, Giovanni Boccaccio is often viewed as the most important European prose writer of his generation. His works influenced popular personalities like Geoffrey Chaucer and Miguel de Cervantes. He was known for reinventing the ottava rima and for his realistic dialogues. as opposed to the set of pattern of plots rampant in the works of medieval writers. He was also inspired by Dante's works, so he was a literary genius. Boccaccio spent most of his later life struggling with financial issues. He had even thought of burning his works once he breathed his last in Certaldo. He also, his works have inspired many renowned writers and poets, including the likes of Chaucer and Shakespeare. So next, authors in Italian literature that I choose is Publius Ovidius Naso. He was a Roman poet. Publius Ovidius Naso, better known as Ovid, lived during the rule of Augustus. He is held at par with Latin legends, Virgil and Horace. So he remembered for his mythological masterpiece, which is the Metamorphoses, a 15-book Latin poem. He spent his final years exiled in a city on the Black Sea. However, these works might have also earned the wrath of Emperor Augustus, who wanted to establish a more moral society. Subsequently, Ovid was banished to the age of the Roman Empire, where he lived and wrote until his death. He spent the rest of his life creating a vast of body works, most of which survive still today. While there is confusion about the chronology of his early works, most scholars believe Amoris to be his first published work, while his least known work is Metamorphoses, published almost a quarter of a century later. So next is Francisco Petrarch. He was an Italian scholar and poet during the early Italian Renaissance, who was one of the earliest humanists. So Francisco Petrarch was an inarguably one of the most influential poets in the world literature and has been rightly dubbed as the father of Renaissance humanism. So Petrarch attempts to conciliate humanism with Christian faith, and his depth admiration for classical philosophy are well evident um, on his works. In his works rather, he wrote many love poems, which were largely exclamatory than persuasive. Petrarch's blessed fame gave birth to any romantic poems, sonnets, letters, essays, histories, and philosophical essays. He was a wide traveler and a highly introspective man. So, and the last one, of course, of the Italian literature that I have chosen is Giordano Bruno. Giordano Bruno was an Italian philosopher, friar, mathematician, cosmological theorist, poet, and Hermetic occultist. Best remembered for his cosmological theories, Bruno insisted that the universe could have no center as it is infinite. So in 2004, Herbert Stephens founded the Giordano Bruno Foundation in Bruno's honor. So he was one of the earliest individuals to conceptualize the notion of the stars being distant suns with their own planetary system, as well as to propose the possibility that these planets could be inhabited. This philosophical belief was called cosmic pluralism. He also advocated the idea of an infinite space that does not have a century. And that would be all about the history of Italian literature, also the authors and writers.